Park Chung-hee was born on November 14, 1917, in a poor farming village in the Gumi region of Korea, which was under Japanese colonial rule at the time. He grew up in a large family with limited resources, his early life shaped by the poverty and hardship common to rural Koreans under Japanese domination. As a child, he showed ambition and a disciplined nature, traits that would later define his rise to power. His education came in Japanese-run schools, where he absorbed both Japanese culture and strict military values, which made a deep impression on him. Unlike many of his peers, he aspired to rise beyond the life of a farmer, driven by an intense desire to elevate himself and his nation out of poverty. As a young man, Park pursued a career in teaching but soon abandoned it to seek entry into military life. During the period of Japanese rule, he enrolled in a military academy and eventually received training at Japan's elite Manhyokyo Imperial Army Academy. This training exposed him to a rigorous discipline and the militaristic ideology that defined Japan at the time. He served as an officer during World War II, aligning himself with Japanese forces, something that would later draw criticism from his opponents. Still, his years in the Japanese military gave him strategic insight, organization skills, and a strict authoritarian mindset that he carried into his later rule. By the time Korea was liberated in 1945, Park had already developed the worldview of a hardened soldier. Following liberation and the division of Korea into North and South, Park initially struggled to find his place. South Korea, plagued by instability, poverty, and political corruption, became the stage for his ambitions. He joined the South Korean army and advanced quickly through its ranks due to his discipline and tactical skills. During the Korean War, he served with distinction, earning recognition for his leadership. But at the same time, he was not untouched by controversy. Park was briefly arrested for suspected ties with communists during the late 1940s, but his military usefulness saved him from execution. After this, he carefully crafted his reputation as a staunch anti-communist, a stance that endeared him to the United States and aligned him with South Korea's strategic needs in the Cold War era. By the early 1960s, South Korea was struggling under political instability and economic stagnation. In 1961, Park Chung-hee led a military coup that overthrew the short-lived government of Prime Minister Chiang Mai-in. He justified his actions by claiming that corruption, inefficiency, and vulnerability to communism had left South Korea in a dangerous position. Promising to restore stability and rebuild the economy, Park quickly consolidated power. He positioned himself as both a savior of the nation and a strongman who would tolerate no dissent. The coup marked the beginning of a new era in Korean history, one that would bring both rapid modernization and harsh authoritarian rule. Park's leadership was marked by his vision to transform South Korea into a modern industrialized nation. At the time he seized power, South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world, heavily reliant on foreign aid. He implemented a series of ambitious 5-year economic development plans, focusing on building heavy industries, developing infrastructure, and encouraging export-driven growth. Under his guidance, South Korea's economy grew at an astonishing pace, a phenomenon that came to be known as the Miracle on the Han River. This period laid the foundation for South Korea's emergence as one of Asia's major economic powers. He fostered ties with the United States and Japan to secure investments and loans, even normalizing relations with Japan in 1965 despite deep public resentment, a decision that drew protests but provided financial and technological support essential to his economic plans. Yet Park's achievements came at a heavy cost. His government was marked by repression, censorship, and the suppression of political freedoms. He created the Korean Central Intelligence Agency (KCIA), a powerful tool that monitored, silenced, and often brutally eliminated dissent. Opposition figures were harassed, jailed, or forced into exile, and student protests were crushed with violence. Though Park justified these measures as necessary to protect the nation from communist threats, many viewed them as a means to maintain his grip on power. His authoritarian methods fostered fear but also ensured the stability needed for his economic programs to succeed. He was re-elected multiple times, but these elections were widely seen as manipulated and lacking true democratic legitimacy. By the early 1970s, Park entrenched his rule further by declaring the Yixing Constitution, which effectively gave him dictatorial powers. This constitution removed term limits, extended presidential authority, and curtailed legislative and judicial independence. He claimed it was needed to face growing threats from North Korea and global instability, but in reality, it cemented his position as an unchallengeable leader. Under this system, South Korea advanced further economically, but politically, it became a police state where surveillance, arrests, and disappearances became part of daily life for anyone who dared to resist. Park Chung-hee's assassination in October 1979 marked the dramatic end of his iron-fisted rule. The man who had once risen from the ranks of the military to seize power in a coup fell at the hands of his own intelligence chief during a dinner gathering. His sudden death stunned South Korea, a nation that had lived under his grip for nearly 2 decades. For some, it was the removal of a dictator who had suffocated freedoms and ruled with unyielding force. For others, it was the tragic loss of a leader who had pulled their country from poverty and given it a future of growth and global standing. His legacy remains deeply divisive, and debates about his rule still echo in Korean society today. In the years after his death, South Korea struggled with political instability before eventually embracing a democratic transformation in the late 1980s. As democratic movements gained strength, people began to reflect more openly on Park's reign, his successes and his excesses. Many South Koreans acknowledged that without his authoritarian grip, the rapid industrialization and economic miracle might not have occurred at the speed it did. Yet the cost in terms of human rights violations, censorship, and authoritarian control remains impossible to ignore. Families of those who were imprisoned, tortured, or silenced under his rule continue to view his government as one of suffering and fear. Park's daughter, Park Chung-hee, later became South Korea's first female president, an event that reignited debates about his legacy. Supporters saw her election as a continuation of his vision, while critics viewed it as a dangerous reminder of authoritarian nostalgia. Her eventual impeachment and removal from office further complicated the family's place in Korean history. Still, Park Chung-hee himself is remembered as a figure larger than life, simultaneously praised as a builder of modern South Korea and condemned as a dictator who crushed the democratic aspirations of his people. Today, statues, memorials, and political debates keep his name alive. Economists study his era for lessons in rapid development, while human rights advocates recall the silenced voices of those who dared to oppose him. In the end, Park Chung-hee remains one of history's paradoxes, a man who built a nation's future while suppressing its freedom, a leader who left behind both prosperity and pain. His rule continues to remind the world that the path to progress can sometimes be paved with shadows as well as light.